Dobrý podvečer. Já vás vítám na debatě v rámci inspiračního fóra. Moje jméno je Vojtěch Boháč, budu moderovat rozhovor s Iljou Ponomarenkem, ukrajinským novinářem ze serveru Kyiv Independent, válečným reportérem taky. Tahle debata původně mělo tu být víc lidí, nicméně to, že Ukrajina je ve válce, dělá některé problémy s logistikou. Ještě tu s náma měl být Taras Derkač a Alina, dva naši kolegové, se kterými jsme trávili dost času při reportážích z Ukrajiny. Nicméně ti se zastavili na hranicích a pohraničníci je 2 dny nepustili z Ukrajiny, protože tam byly nějaké problémy s dokumenty. Teď už jsou na cestě do Jihlavy. Dnes v noci sem přijedou, ale bohužel téhle debaty se s námi zúčastnit nemůžou. Takže já tady přivítám Ilju Ponomarenka, novináře z Kyiv Independent. Zdravím. A začneme debatu, u které bych byl rád, když se jí budete účastnit také, když budete mít nějaké otázky. Já na vás teda teď špatně vidím přes ty světla, ale kdybyste měli nějakou otázku, zkuste se přihlásit klidně, doneseme vám mikrofon a můžete ji dát, ať je to takové interaktivnější a živé. Teď už vidím docela dobře. Tak jo, můžeme začít. První otázka, kterou mám, tak je vlastně Kyiv Independent je anglojazyčné médium, které se stalo jakýmsi hlasem Ukrajiny směrem minimálně k západnímu světu během posledních 8 měsíců. Pro mě vždycky mám takovou otázku, kdy lidé v redakci jsou Ukrajinci a chtějí ze všech sil, aby Ukrajina tu válku vyhrála. Zároveň role novináře je být kritický vlastně a to, když se děje něco nesprávně, tak o tom informovat. A mě by zajímalo, jak se s tady tím dá smířit, nebo jak se v tady takové situaci, kdy člověk z povahy toho, kým je a že je pod útokem sousední země, tak by mohl mít tendenci nekritizovat a tvořit jakousi jednotnou frontu, ale zároveň je novinář a tím pádem je ze své podstaty kritický.
The problem is that there is no real dilemma in this issue. Yes, as journalists in Ukraine, we definitely stand for the independence of our country. We definitely want our country to win because we see this as the just cause, as a very black and white situation, because we know it. We know what is at stake. We know the situation very clear. And therefore, since we want our nation to win, we are being honest about this. And since we want our country to win, we are open and we are very vocal about the problems that prevent our nation from winning. So if we have a situation of, for instance, a corrupt official in the Ukrainian leadership or the military, if we have something, should we be talking about, should we criticize our leadership? The answer is, of course, yes, because by doing that, we help eradicate problems. Therefore, we bring the victory closer to our nation. So this applies to absolutely anything, any situation in which we, as honest journalists in front of our audience, can make a conclusion and say that there is a problem, there is something that needs to be criticized and needs to be eradicated. This is exactly what we do at the Kyiv Independent. And in general, the media community in Ukraine is very critical, is very open to criticism. There is no real wartime criticism, no wartime censorship in Ukraine. Everybody is capable of criticizing the leadership, everyone, everything. Facebook is one big hot debate about anything that's happening in the country and in wartime too. So the balance is the honesty. By criticizing, we help make the victory closer to us.
Je to něco, co chápe v současné době dobře i ukrajinská vláda, protože většinou máme dynamiku zvlášť, že ze začátku, když se vláda třeba dostane k moci, tak je velice otevřená ale po 8 měsících války si dokážu představit, že může být už o něco citlivější vůči kritice, vnímat to více jako podkopávání její autority nebo bombardování vlastně jejich řad z pozic nelojálních novinářů. Vyvíjí se nějak právě ukrajinská vláda v tady tom, jak je ochotná komunikovat s novináři, kteří kritizují, a objevuje se té kritiky vůbec hodně v současné době?
I don't think that something has really changed over the months of war. In general, the media space and the relationship between media and authorities in Ukraine have always been pretty critical, and it was very possible and very acceptable and very welcome for everyone to criticize everything on social media, anywhere, in any form, and it remains the same situation up to this day. Like I said, Ukrainian Facebook is a hot place in which everyone knows it better about all things possible. So I don't think that something has changed. We do not have censorship except for sensible information that might jeopardize the actual combat situation of the military, to which general audience rarely has any connection. And also incidents like incoming missiles and the immediate aftermath of incoming missiles. So it's a general rule upon media, among government agencies, that we do not post things like explosions, the aftermath of explosions immediately after these incidents, so that we do not provide Russians with the immediate information from ground zeros. Other than that, we do not have any very strictly followed instructions and bans on something. It's pretty open, and we're in a pretty good situation, and we're really glad about this.
Už před začátkem debaty jsme lehce naťukli, když jsme se bavili téma embedovaných novinářů, nebo to, že vlastně minimálně poslední dekádu ve více konfliktech, nejenom na Ukrajině, je poměrně běžné, že armáda nenechá novináře pohybovat se jenom tak podle toho, s jakou jednotkou se na čem konkrétně domluví, ale že existuje nějaký program, kdy armádní velení buď pouští někam novináře, nebo nepouští podle toho, jak si samo řekne, co je výhodné, aby lidi viděli, a co nevýhodné. Co se vlastně v takové situaci od frontových reportérů, jako jste vy, nebo jako jsou mnozí kolegové, můžeme dozvědět, a kde jsou ty limity práce, co už se spíš nedozvíme, co třeba armáda samotná nechce, aby jsme věděli?
Normally, the situation is the following. For instance, when we had this Kharkiv region offensive operation, of cities like Izium or Kupiansk or Balaklia were liberated in September, and basically 2-3 maybe days after that, journalists followed. That was in the form of press tours organized by the authorities, or many journalists just decided to go on their own and take cars and just rush to there and work from there and bring stories from there. Normally, when it comes to press tours, the military or civilian authorities just notify journalists that there is an opportunity to go there. We provide transport. They bring us to a newly liberated town such as Balaklia, for instance, or Izium in Kharkiv Oblast. And they just let us out and say that you have one day and you talk to whoever you want, you do whatever you want, you make pictures of whatever you want, and by the end of the day, please make sure to be back to the bus and we'll take you back to Kharkiv. They do not have real influence on what we write about, and normally we have quite a freedom in terms of what we want to see in this regard. I don't think that I ever faced the situation in which I had something that the military, in the battlefields, the military did not want to see published. When it comes to things the military does not want to see, it's about things that concern battlefield situation. For instance, posting pictures from battlefields on which the enemy can geolocate certain objects and to use them for targeting. So, but these are very, very rare things that not many journalists face. Only mostly all those who get embedded with the military. So, like I said, it's pretty open, it's pretty okay, and in most cases, 99% of the cases, the journalists just follow the military within hours in new liberated territories. So we're in a pretty good situation in this regard.
Díky za odpověď. Podívám se, jestli tu má někdo otázku, klidně se můžete přihlásit a případně ji zadat. Je tam? Tak můžu poprosit, já pořád špatně docela vidím do toho publika, ale myslím, že jde někdo s mikrofonem, nebo to není s mikrofonem? Jo, super, děkuju.
Dobrý den, já bych se chtěla, když o těch kritických informacích, které jako píšete kriticky o ukrajinské vládě nebo o věcech, které se dějí na Ukrajině, jestli máte přehled o tom, kolik z těch informací zneužívá ruská média.
Děkuji za otázku.
Some, in our situation, Russians can use anything at their disposal. They are absolutely free to twist any sort of information to their favor and to make everything out of anything. So, in reality, you can't just win with these people, as Americans say. We can, for instance, criticize certain international legion units for corruption, for violence inside the unit, for very questionable, questionable attitude on the battlefields, because we get complaints from their fellow soldiers, and the Russians can use this information, interpreting this as, hey, the whole idea of international legion is just corrupting, it's crumbling. The NATO mercenaries are not an organized force; they're useless against victorious Russian forces. So it makes really little sense to think about how would Russia use this information. What makes sense is to stay honest, to post and verifiable and reliable information. Because of this, to be very careful about what you say in terms of the accuracy of what you say and what you report to public. To be truthful, to be honest, and simply say the truth. Be in Ukraine, being a journalist is a curse because it's very hard in wartime. It's very intense, but also it's a blessing because you don't have to lie. The situation is quite clear. You don't have to conceal anything. So you just work being honest and trying to reach out to your audience that trusts you.
Vy jste popsal, jak zhruba k tomu sám přistupujete, ale mě by zajímalo přece jenom, Ukrajina je země ve válce, kde my jsme to zažili minimálně v únoru, březnu a dubnu, když jsme tam ještě pracovali. Ty emoce jsou hodně napjaté ohledně toho, co je v pořádku psát, co je v pořádku fotit, kde se vůbec pohybovat pro to, aby jsme právě neprospěli Rusům. My to známe i z Česka, že se tady dost často ozývá, že když napíšeme sebe menší kritiku třeba ukrajinské vlády nebo ukrajinského postupu, tak se objeví skupina lidí poměrně velká, která jako říká, že tím prospíváme Rusku. Jak moc silné je něco takového na Ukrajině, že tam doopravdy se často s tady tou kritikou setkáváte, musíte jí čelit, a přestože jste říkal, že máte nějaký svůj přístup k tomu, ve kterém jste přesvědčený, tak jak je to vlastně těžké pro novináře v takovémhle prostředí fungovat?
I don't think that it's a big problem for us Ukrainians, because there will always be someone who thinks that by criticizing someone or by exposing problems we work for Russians. I don't know. Once upon a time, not me, but our KI guys, they had an investigation. It was very headline making about the international legion, that they have in certain unit, they have a lot of problems like corruption, violence. I have described this. So yeah, there could be some people who said that exposing these problems benefits Russia, but in reality, this benefits Ukraine, because we are standing for getting rid of those problems. So I don't think that it makes sense to listen to such voices who do not understand the real role of journalism, especially in wartime, when we are so on the edge and we are so in a critical need of eradicating our problems and being as effective as possible. So, and also this is a sort of a case-by-case study, because sometimes by saying that Ukrainian authorities are not doing a correct policy by resisting Russian aggression, Ukrainian leadership should just give up for the sake of saving lives. I don't think that works as a good faith criticism. So in this case, this does not look good as a criticism and does not look good as something that really supports Russian narrative about this. So it's a case-by-case study, really.
Děkuju. Já mám takovou otázku, která mě provází už poměrně dlouho. Pamatuju si, že ještě v únoru, v březnu, v dubnu, když jsme právě na Ukrajině pracovali, tak mě až překvapilo, jak často plno lidí, se kterými jsme se bavili, ať už to bylo v Kyjevě a okolí, nebo to bylo v Mykolajivě, nebo na samotném Donbase, v Žitomiru a tak dál, tak vlastně z toho, co se děje, nevinili Rusy, vinili režim, ruskou vládu a vlastně neozývali se, zatímco během následujících měsíců, a přijde mně, že je to víc a víc, tak se z Ukrajiny samotné ozývá, že vlastně tahle válka je něco, co způsobili Rusové, v čem je každý běžný Rus vlastně namočený a z čeho je zodpovědný. A v posledních měsících slýchám víc a víc, ostatně i včera na zahájení festivalu to zaznělo, že vlastně jediná cesta, jak se z toho dostat, je, aby se Rusko rozpadlo do nějakého mnohem menšího útvaru, než kterým je teď. Mě by zajímalo, jak o tomhle tématu, protože vím, že v nějakém rozhovoru, který jsem četl s vámi, tak jste se na to díval poměrně kriticky. Tak by mě zajímalo, jestli jste procházel nějakým podobným vývojem, nebo jestli vůbec tady ten vývoj taky sledujete na ukrajinské veřejnosti, nebo jestli jsem to pochopil třeba špatně, tak jak se na to díváte?
Yes, of course, it's very obvious. This is exactly what's happening since February, because in the light of what Russia has done in terms of destroying cities, wiping out whole regions, committing insane barbarities just in the eyes of those people who had some illusions maybe about Russia, about Kremlin, about what it is actually, what the Kremlin is and what the Kremlin regime is, what they are capable of. As someone who's originally from Donbass, I have the whole family in there, and I have a history of living there. So I have lived most of my life in Donbass, and two of my most dear cities of Donbass have been just razed to the ground. I'm talking about Mariupol and Volnovakha, my hometown. I can tell you that yes, many people from my circle of communication, they have changed their minds. Many are ashamed of what they have believed over the years before February came. Many feel bad about this, and many just swap their opinion and change their minds about what's happening. So because those who have good heart, those who have a brain in their head, he or she has seen what's happened because of Russia, how many cities have been destroyed, how much blood had been spilled about this. So yeah, definitely they changed their minds about Russia. And when it comes to the second part of the question, the demolition of Russia, I don't think that's in Ukraine's best interest, to be honest. If Russia is absolutely destabilized and decomposes into many conflicting republics or breakaway territories. On one hand, yes, an internal strife inside Russia would probably be a relief upon Ukraine and Russian imperial ambitions. But on the other hand, it's not a complete answer to what we want, a complete security from Russia, because we end up having dozens of enclaves fighting each other, and also probably fighting Ukraine in the region. So the whole region will be absolutely destabilized. So I think that this is increasingly probable scenario, given the fact that so many fractions beyond Kremlin are gaining power right now. I'm talking about Wagner or Kadyrovцы. but I'm afraid this is not very positive scenario for us in this regard.
Takže třeba tady to v současné době poměrně časté volání po rozpadu Ruska je něco, co bychom měli na západě v Evropě, v Evropské unii vnímat jako primárně jako volání Ukrajiny po zajištění vlastního bezpečí a s tím, že tohle je něco, co se může zdát radikální, ale je to, co vlastně Ukrajinci teď vidí jako to, co je může ochránit před podobnými scénáři, jaký vidíme od února do budoucna.
Again, it's a very debatable question, and it's a question where we do not know and can predict many other things that are part of such event. Those who call for full decomposition of Russia, mostly it's about emotions, of course. It's very natural for Ukrainians to have such emotions towards the aggressor state, of course. But and yes, probably this decomposition, the internal strife would be a relief for Ukraine. But then again, it remains to be seen if the internal strife and the absolutely civil war inside Russia among many factors would leave Ukraine in rest. I'm not sure about this. I'm absolutely not sure about this. So, and besides, this is something that that has so many unknown members in this equation. So, and the war is so hard to predict for the future. It's so full of surprises. So, I think that for now we should be not thinking about the decomposition of Russia, but denying Russia of its capability to go on fighting this war, physically denying this capability in terms of resources and many other factors. So let's strip them of this ability and we'll see what happens next.
Vy sám pocházíte z Volnováchy, což je pro mě vlastně asi jeden z nejtragičtějších, nebo Volnovácha, Mariupol, ty nejtragičtější příběhy celé války za posledních 8 měsíců, s tím, že když poslouchám příběhy o Volnováše, o lidech, kteří s tama odešli na poslední chvíli a co s ní zbylo, tak já jsem žil na Ukrajině dohromady necelé 2 roky a přesto vlastně jako novinář jsem v hodně situacích, když jsem poslouchal příběhy lidí, tak měl co dělat s tím, abych jako nepřešel od nějaké chladné hlavy do nenávisti. A vlastně musel jsem si na to tam dávat opravdu velký pozor, když se člověk setkává s těmi příběhy. Mě by zajímalo, jak to může dělat ukrajinský novinář, který vlastně z toho místa přímo pochází, z místa, které mělo tak jako šíleně tragický osud, jako třeba Volnovácha. Tak jak pracujete s těmi emocemi, že vlastně vůbec dokážete dál pracovat a pracovat konstruktivně?
Yes, indeed. It's very hard for me personally because obviously my hometown has been destroyed. The city of my student years have been destroyed. So many memories, so many emotions, friends. Of course, this is something that as a journalist, as a Ukrainian, you have to work this out inside your brain, inside your soul, in the night, and you have to reprocess these emotions and this bitter feeling in your soul into something that fuels your work. So you're a journalist, you have a chance to help change this situation. You have a chance to change the world. So you have seen what they have done to your world. So now you have the full motivation to get this over with, to help get this done, and to get the humankind rid of this, because you have seen what happens, what this thing brings for people. So it's a fuel for more motivation. It's a fuel for not giving up on this and spending basically 95% of your life dedicated to work, because you work for the sake of killing this. The thing that has killed the best memories of your youth and your house and your home. So it's a fuel for more work.
S tím částečně souvisí, já se hodně často zamýšlím nad tím, že když jsme se na konci dubna vrátili z fronty a odjeli jsme do Evropy v tu chvilku, nebo do do Česka, jeli jsme na dovolenou někam do Itálie, tak mě se vlastně po opuštění těch míst, kde neustále slyšíte bombardování, kde neustále slyšíte tyhle příběhy, tak v tu chvíli se mi spustil nějaký obranný mechanismus a začaly se mě zdát poměrně hororové sny. Trvalo to asi 2,5 měsíce, když byla venku bouřka, tak jsem se budil a měl jsem pocit, že jsem bombardovaný raketami a tak a přemýšlel jsem, vlastně, když tohle se stalo po nějakých 2-3 týdnech poblíž fronty, kde to doopravdy neustále slyšíte, tak co vlastně dělá ta válka s lidmi, kteří za prvé jakoby jezdí na tu frontu a za druhé vlastně ty informace s nimi pracují, jak říkáte, 95% svého času a pořád s nima přichází do styku. Dá se tam nastavit nějaká psychologická hygiena nebo něco, jak tomu zabránit, nebo se tomu nedá vyhnout a člověkem to stejně zmítá? Jak se tomu bráníte vlastně?
This is something you can't really avoid, but there are things that you must understand as you work as a journalist in Ukraine. First is that you call yourself a journalist in Ukraine, therefore you're a wartime journalist in a country that is in war, so that's why you do not have a job, you have a service to your community, to your country. It's not about the service to the military or service to the government. You serve your people. So when you serve a service, you do not complain. You serve, you do your duty, you get all of your strength, and you work. Of course, what's happening to many Ukrainian journalists, especially those who work with intense information, in intense conditions. Of course, it's about fatigue. It's about collecting things that not many people want to have in their heads. It's about knowing so many faces of people that are not alive anymore because of this war. It's about losing a lot of people that you knew from the military and from civilian life. It's about seeing so many pictures of them on Facebook, so many pictures of children who have died because of this. Also on social media, the sounds of war fighting. So to me, it's something I just made an agreement with myself, is that I work in the most intense way until I can, until the end of the war, and then I will probably stop doing this. I will simply get myself over with war journalism, because I have seen more than enough for myself. But in this regard, I can't speak for the rest of the guys working in Ukraine, but I can speak for myself. It's just I'm a bit lucky in this regard, because I had quite an experience of working in the conflict zone before this. So I have a pretty low barrier for fear. For it's what happens when city is getting bombed. It's quite understandable to me. I know how this feels. So I've been there before. So I get it easier than most of the people that I know. So, and I help rationalize these feelings and emotions for them. I know when it's real danger and when it's not, when Kiev gets bombed. So I try to help my loved ones with this. But yeah, working as a journalist in Ukraine is taking its toll, but it's a service. This is what we have to do.
Ona je to práce v neustálém napětí a vlastně která nekončí nikdy. Jak se projevuje pak na novináři nebo ještě víc válečném reportérovi vlastně to, že už je to 8 nekončících měsíců v takové situaci? A jak člověka ovlivní pak třeba ta dlouhodobá únava, nebo je to něco, co si vůbec připouští?
Well, it's a sort of a fatigue, but it's mostly, like I said, I've had my experience as a wartime journalist. So it's mostly for me, it's the usual fatigue from work, from work in itself, because it's intense work. So sometimes you just get overloaded with this. But I don't think that I have emotional fatigue about this war. I just decided that I've had more than enough about military stuff, about things connected to the war. So for the future, for myself, I want to work with something more peaceful, like science, for instance, or nature, or something that not related to war. you have to have something else in your life when you have a chance.
Díky. Obrátím se zase na publikum, jestli tady jsou nějaké otázky. Se zkusím podívat. Vidím, vzadu nic se hlásí. Myslím, jestli se tam může dostat mikrofon.
Dobrý den, Julio. Já příjemnou shodou okolností vás sleduju na Twitteru už asi od začátku války, tak děkuji za to, co děláte a že jste tu teď s náma. V mediálním prostoru se už nějakou dobu objevuje zpráva o použití takzvané špinavé bomby. Ruská strana z toho samozřejmě obvinuje Ukrajinu, ale víme, že to je standardní taktika Rusů, že obvinují z něčeho, obvinují druhou stranu z něčeho, co buď už udělali, nebo se teprve chystají udělat. Takže se může jednat o přípravu půdy pro operaci pod falešnou vlajkou. A druhá zpráva je třeba o podminování Kachovské přehrady. Tak mě by zajímalo... Mě by jenom zajímalo, co si myslíte ze své pozice novináře, jak se bude situace vyvíjet, nebo co si o těchto zprávách konkrétně myslíte. Děkuju.
Díky za otázku.
The problem behind such claims from Russian side is that they're so rational, they are so numerous, and they are so not connected with reality that it makes little sense to try to rationalize them and try to what stands behind this. What stands behind this is that Russians have like two main battlefields for this war. One is the actual battlefield that happens in actual where actual hostilities go on, and another one is the informational warfare, in which they use all possible weapons available, and sometimes they're not very competitive and not very smart about this. So they keep bringing this propagandistic messages about biolabs, about Ukrainian nuclear program, I don't know, about zombie soldiers. Now it's about dirty bomb. Now it's about the Kakhovka Dam on the Dnipro River. Somehow they think that such bold claims, such headline-making claims, they infiltrate into world media, especially when it comes to countries like China, India, and maybe, as they believe, this might give them more support and more anti-Ukrainian sentiment. So I would not see anything else behind that.
Díky za odpověď. Mě tady u toho napadá, když jsme přijeli ještě před začátkem války do Kyjeva, byli jsme na ministerstvu obrany, dělali jsme tam takový rozhovor, tak nám mluvčí ministerstva obrany, když jsem se ho ptal, jestli teda mají informace, že ta válka začne nebo nezačne, tak říkal, hele, je jedno, jaké máme informace, ale největší blbost by teď byla strašit lidi tím, že budeme říkat, že na nás zítra zaútočí Rusko, oni se všichni seberou, odejdou a kdo bude bránit zemi. A jestli třeba se to nedá nějakým způsobem srovnat, vy jste anglojazyčné médium, jehož čtenáři jsou primárně na západě, a jestli na sobě vidíte nějaký jako tlak z vlastních řad nebo sebe sami a v tom nevystrašit ten západ tím, že by třeba mohla doopravdy, by Rusko mohlo hodit jadernou bombu, čehož bychom se mohli vylékat a říct si, jestli teda Ukrajinu dál podporovat nebo ne. Berete nějak v úvahu tady to vlastně, jaké reakce to vaše informování na západě může vyvolat vzhledem k ochotě podporovat dál Ukrajinu?
The thing is that we never, post information, we never quote Russian officials or Ukrainian officials just because they said so. We rationalize things. For instance, if we talk about the threat of nuclear weapons, we actually had the story about this several weeks ago. And what we did in the story, we tried to rationalize the whole problem. We tried to give answer, how likely is this? Why this? Likely or not likely. So instead of emotions, instead of bold claims, we explain things. We try to analyze, rationalize this. As many people read such stories, and which do not simply make claims, but also try to deep dig in this problem. People rationalize this problem. They have it beyond emotions, but rational thinking. So it makes attitude towards such problem in a more rationalized manner. So I don't think that our stories can scare, because we're not scared. We explain it, and we're trying to ascertain the problem for our readers.
Nenarážíte někdy na limity toho, že třeba před začátkem té současné invaze tak hodně lidí říkalo, že racionálně Rusko nezaútočí, protože by si vylámalo zuby minimálně v bojích o ukrajinská města, a i přesto, že hodně lidí to bralo jako iracionální, tak stejně Vladimír Putin ten rozkaz dal. A do jaké míry vlastně máme věřit nějaké racionalitě plánování tady toho režimu?
Of course it's not. I'm not saying about Russian rationality. I'm saying about our rationality in understanding what they're doing. Part of this rationality of our understanding, rather than emotional stance, is understanding that yes, we have certain instruments. For instance, when it comes to nuclear weapons, we have certain instruments in which we will see this, and we know that there are factors that make such an outcome unlikely, and we understand that China, for instance, and India does not want this. There will be a harsh response from this country. So this and many other factors make it not likely. But at the same time, we're not saying it's impossible, because we know that Russia has been deeply irrational about what it is doing. And one of those things, which was correctly stated, one of those things that they were not rational about is invading Ukraine with what they have and invading Ukraine as such. So of course, being rational also includes understanding that Russian leadership are not rational about this. They can do whatever they want, and they tend to be making really bad mistakes.
Díky. Zeptám se, jestli jsou otázky, a podívám se, vidím vzadu.
Dobrý den. Já bych měl jeden dotaz.
Moment, pardon, já se jenom ještě zeptám, protože nám Ilja vypadl, jestli se slyšíme. Vím, že před začátkem debaty říkal, že si musí dát notebook na nabíjení, tak...
Can you guys please just 30 seconds, because my laptop is dying, so let me just plug it in and I'll be back in 20 seconds, okay?
Dobře.
Just 20 seconds. Meanwhile, you can ask your questions, I'm listening to you, okay?
Dobrá, tak tím pádem těch 20 vteřin využijem k položení té otázky, jestli nás Ilja stejně slyší.
Výborně. Já bych měl dotaz, protože informace, které dostáváme, tak většinou jdou z Ukrajiny směrem do zbytku světa. Mě by zajímalo, jestli existuje nějaká cenzura nebo pseudocenzura těch informací, které jdou z Evropy nebo ze světa směrem do Ukrajiny, protože určitě v naší společnosti, a teď myslím celou Evropskou unii a i ve světě, určitě zaznívají hlasy toho typu, co je nám do toho, ať si to tam nějak vyřeší, nebo ať se vzdají což musí být hrozně demotivující. Mimo jiné. Tak jestli existuje na tom kanále, na tom směru těch informací ze světa směrem do Ukrajiny nějaká, ať už reálná cenzura, nebo nějaká snaha o objektivní informování, nebo je tam nějaká jako vnitřní cenzura? Děkuji.
Díky za otázku.
There's no real censorship about this because it's not possible, because there is no real control over the whole of informational space in Ukraine. I seriously doubt that it's possible at all in the age when everybody has an access to Facebook, to Twitter, to any social media where everything and everyone is present, including all media outlets possible. The government in Ukraine, authorities in Ukraine, they have control over something that we call the national marathon, which is like constant 24/7 live news streams that concern some of the country's biggest TV channels. But yeah, on these channels, the leadership has control over agenda. Basically, it's just a government-held media outlets. They speak all the same, the constant flow of newsreels. Yes, in this regard, they have the control over what's being said. But the thing is that this is one of just so many sources of information that are available in the ocean of Ukrainian media space, and not many people really watch TV in Ukraine, and not many people really trust these things, because most people in Ukraine get news from the internet, in which there are no limits on the information, basically on this information, especially when it comes to Telegram.
Díky, já bych trochu navázal tady na tu otázku. Měl jsem lehce podobnou. Vy jste anglojazyčná redakce, často se dostáváte do západních médií, západní a další média se vás ptají, dělají s váma rozhovory. Mě by zajímalo, jak vnímáte ten rozdíl mezi tím, co se píše na Ukrajině a co se píše ať už v Británii, v Americe, v Německu, v západní Evropě, jestli tam vidíte zásadní rozdíl, jestli tam jsou nějaké témata, které jsou dlouhodobě z vašeho pohledu špatně pochopitelná, špatně pochopená, špatně uchopená a o kterých je nějakým způsobem informováno z vašeho pohledu s nepochopením.
I must say that Western journalism, global journalism in general, is doing a great job in Ukraine. I must admit it. We owe, as a nation, to all the top media outlets that had been present in Ukraine. Basically, absolutely all of the world's top media outlets have been present in Ukraine, in Kiev, during the Battle of Kiev. I don't think that if we were reduced to the Ukrainian media covered the situation, I don't think that the Ukrainian war would have so much media coverage and so much support in the world's public opinion. So I say that we often see very, very good things, very top quality things written about Ukraine, not necessarily things that we like. That journalists do a good job. They do insightful journalism about what our command is doing, what was the situation before the invasion, for instance. What they tell a lot of personal stories, lots of terrific pictures about this. So I seriously believe that in Ukraine, particularly in places like Bucha, journalism as a notion has proved itself and demonstrated why journalism matters, because it shows you what needs to be done, what's bad about this world, and what needs to be dealt with in this world. So I don't think that we have some major topics missing in Ukraine, because I keep thinking about what Western journalists write about, and basically we are on the same line. I don't think that, except for some very minor details, that they're missing something, because a lot of attention has been paid on Ukraine, and we are really thankful about this.
Ono poprvé se o Ukrajině, nebo ne poprvé, ale od té doby, co začala válka, tak vlastně dá se říct, že se o Ukrajině začalo na západě extrémně psát v roce 2013 s Majdanem a pak zvlášť 2014 na začátku války a ještě předtím anexe Krymu. A pak to trošičku, dejme tomu od roku 2015, ten zájem uvadl a teďka se zase obnovil ještě ve větší míře než v tom roce 2014. A já bych se chtěl zeptat, změnilo se z vašeho pohledu, protože vy jste předtím vlastně už pracoval v anglojazyčném Kiev Postu, než jste přešel, myslím, na konci loňského roku do Kiev Independent. Změnilo se to, jak o Ukrajině informovali zahraniční média do začátku téhle války v tom období těch 8 let od Majdanu a poté?
Mm-hmm. Of course, there was a difference. Yes, there was a difference because in many ways, because the Russian war against Ukraine before February 24th, it was always a fading conflict. In general, this war has never had any, natural, serious reasons. It never wanted to continue. So for years before that, we had a situation in which there was no real war and no real peace, because without foreign intervention, without external force that fuels this war, the war is not happening. So there is no real hatred between the two sides. There's no real reasons for them to fight. The only reason for this war to take place was the influence of Russia, the direct effect of Russia in Crimea and also in the East. And it's natural that since there have been basically no events of in this war, the front line before this year was was the place that I called the place where time stands still, because you go to the front line, nothing really happens. It's a very routine. It's eventless. So it's very static, very stable, very boring. Well, that's why, of course, in such a situation, in this very unnatural war that does not want to be fought, of course, global media started losing attention because it's just void of nothingness about this. This war could easily be ended with just a snap, and nothing would prevent it from this, except for the master of this war. But of course, with the coming of this pre-war crisis, this transition of war during autumn and early winter, and the war itself, of course, it's a unique situation. It's an insane situation, given our day and age. It's the biggest conflict since World War II, of course. And the situation is so black and white and so univocal about the role of an aggressor and the victim, that of course, so many people are interested in this. There are so many stories about this, so many tragic things that needs to be demonstrated in front of the world, and the role of it of public opinion is so important that yes, there is definitely lots and lots of work for journalism here in any aspect.
Díky. Vidím že zvednutou ruku, jestli tam můžeme dostat mikrofon do čtvrté řady.
Můžu, jestli je dobrý moment teď. Říkal jste, že to je service, že to je služba vlastně, ta žurnalistická profese v tento moment pro vás. Jenom jestli byste nám vlastně mohl říct, jak funguje redakce, jak je v Independent v těchto podmínkách, samozřejmě jak dalece jako můžete o tom vyprávět, dostáváte ještě pořád svoje platy, musíte víc šifrovat, musíte víc zálohovat, a jaké žurnalistické vlastnosti se ukázaly jako funkční a nezbytné vlastně teďka v těch válečných kulisách, jestli se tam vlastně něco takhle vybarvilo, řekněme.
Díky za otázku.
I'm not at my newsroom right now because I'm in Amsterdam for a short trip, but hopefully I'll be back. I'll be back home on weekends. So the wartime newsroom is basically the same newsroom with people who are dedicated to work at any time of day. We do not have real vacations and holidays, no weekends, no like 100% weekends of work. Being a wartime journalist demands a lot of readiness for you. That could include readiness to work just in the middle of the night or the whole night. It's about dedication to just get up and go to the front line within hours. It's about dedication to bring as many stories as possible. It's about dedication to collect as much information and educate yourself about the military, about how it works, about tactics, about weapons. It's about spending a lot of time for getting the understanding what's going on to the front, how the front line map look like, what's the tendency, where are the most vivid events of what's happening on the front line. You have to be always knowing what happens to this and that point on the front line. So you have to be always thinking about weapon supplies. You have to know everything about these weapons, these new weapons, and why they matter, how they work, so you could be able to answer these questions to your reader. You have to always understand the tendency. You see the tendency, so that you could explain and talk about this with your readers. We work at the office. We have a mixture of being online and offline. I mean, present in the office. We have a small office in Podil right now at this moment. When in Kiev we have air raid sirens, our guys go to a basement that is a bar. So at the same time, it's a air raid shelter and a bar. So, and they keep working in there. So they plug in their laptops in the bar, so they keep working. So the work never stops. At the KI, we have several teams that cover constant news that have this news feed. That includes people who are not in Ukraine, but they are, for instance, in Canada, in America, and they cover night shifts when there's nighttime in Ukraine. They work because it's daytime, obviously, for them. We collect as many possibilities and opportunities to go to the front line or talk to people and get deployed to somewhere, and to tell stories about civilians and about military. We get any possible opportunities to go to places like NATO headquarters and talk to officials about this, and it helps. The way we get our money is it's almost 100% dependent on public support. We have 8,000 supporters on Patreon. So the Kyiv Independent as a media outlet works just thanks to supporters and regular people from across the world. We do not depend on just one name with the money back.
Díky.
In general, it's a company of friends from all across the world, from Japan, from Britain, from the US, Ukraine, Israel, and we stay friends for many years. So we stay as a family for many years. We spend a lot of time together working for many years. It's an international young team of people who are dedicated about this war. And I must say that foreigners, for instance, guys from France, Australia, the US, they're also very passionate about Ukraine. So they as passionate as us in Ukraine, and they live in Ukraine, and they have connections and ties in Ukraine. They have Ukrainian wives and girlfriends, for instance, and they feel really passionate about the fate of this country. They really want this. They're so enthusiastic about this, as enthusiastic as we are as Ukrainians.
Díky. Jestli máme ještě otázku, vidím vzadu, že někdo mává rukou.
Navázat na tady to, co říkala kolegyně tady přede mnou, tak jsem se jenom chtěla zeptat, jestli říkal jste, že to je hodně emočně vypjaté a že vy se s tím vyrovnáváte líp, protože už jako víte, co se děje ve válce, a někteří kolegové, že hůř. Tak jsem se chtěla zeptat, jestli máte nějaké třeba supervize nebo nějakou psychologickou pomoc a podporu, nebo jak jako se s tím ta redakce jako celek vyrovnává, jestli teda jdete do toho baru a tam si dáte panáka, nebo jak to vypadá.
Díky.
Basically, yes, we stay together when it happens. Not every one of us go to the office all the time. We have like a free attendance policy, but everyone should know what everyone's doing in this regard. So I'm not saying that I'm a sort of a John Rainbow or something, but people get adapted to any circumstances. It just becomes your new norm for this. And since I had some understanding of how weapons work, of how artillery works, or how drones work, I sometimes when people ask me, or when people know this, they ask me questions. Do I think that these Iranian drones are a great danger to every one of us here in the city? Or they ask me, do you think we should be really worried about the threat of nuclear weapons against Kyiv or against any other place in Ukraine? So I'm not giving them easy answers, but I help them rationalize, for instance, their understanding of how military works, of how nuclear weapons work, tactical nuke works. And when I explain them and try to rationalize this knowing in this situation for them, so they feel much better for this, because most of the human emotions, such as fear, comes from little understanding of what you really fear. When you have some more knowledge, when you are better informed about things that you're supposed to be afraid of, it gives you more reassurance. So you understand them better, and you have more rational aspect rather than emotions that get you blinded. But yeah, we do things like going down to the basement. We have some, we continue working in there. We really talk to each other. For instance, sometimes, what was complicated was the day when, the day of the drone attack a couple of weeks ago, the Iranian drones bombed Kyiv. So yeah, sometimes it just makes sense to talk to your colleague about this, to listen to him or her. Before that, I remember the day when on Monday, Russians bombed a thermal station in Kiev, pretty close to the place where I've been, and just up in front of that place that I was, a colleague of mine lives. He was really worried because he had barely had understanding what's going on. He saw the Russian cruise missile for the first time in his life. So we walked out, we had a chat in the park. We even went to see one of the places where that were hit by Russians in Shevchenko Park in Kiev. Sometimes people just need someone to be with them and help them, just calm down and get down with emotions. So solidarity and friendly interconnection really matters.
Díky, mě by zajímalo, vy jste přece jenom docela významný hlas komunikující mezi Ukrajinou a minimálně anglojazyčným světem. Máte nějaké, ať už zároveň říkáte, že jste prakticky nezávislí na nějakých vnějších financí, kromě těch malých dárců, a máte nějaké buď jako jak vážné, tak bizární historky, kdyby se vás někdo snažil ovlivňovat k tomu, ať jedete jeho agendu, jako nevím, třeba Elon Musk vám napsal na Twitteru, ať podporujete jeho řešení a vydáte o tom nějaký článek, že by Ukrajina měla něco pustit nebo tak podobně, nebo z nějaké jakékoliv strany vlastně, co se nám těžko představuje, jestli tam máte nějaké pokusy o takové tlaky.
There have been attempts, but it's always in the form of, hey, can you have a look at this? We think, this is what Ukrainian officials sometimes send me. And they, hey, can you have a look at this? We think that's important to demonstrate for the to the Western audience. So can you please maybe retweet this if you find this really interesting? And so sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. It depends on my opinion, if I think that's worthwhile. But other than that, it's us who decides what needs to be published and in what form it needs to be published, because we answer in front of our consciousness and in front of our journalistic standards and in front of our audience that trusts us. So that's why there is so much trust towards us, just because we stay open and we work for no one but the actual people who reads us. So we belong to people who need us, and we work for them. So one of my worst nightmares is that we do something really bad and we lose this trust and lose this, very truthful, almost personal connection with the audience. So people stop loving us and start decrying us for what we've done. So of course we appreciate this trust, and we try to keep up with expectations in this regard.
Ona válka celkově jako informačně šíleně složité prostředí, kde se objevují nejrůznější informace, občas těžké ověřit, a občas ještě těžší. Máte nějaký jako fuck up vyloženě, který se vám stal takový jako největší v redakci, který jste pak museli jako dlouho reflektovat, aby se to znova nestávalo, nebo co jsou takové jako nástrahy téhle doby v tom, co nepříjemného se v redakci může stát?
Yes, of course, we are human beings. We are operating in very complicated ocean of information that is boiling, that is hard. Sometimes it's hard to cope with. Of course, I'm not sure if I can get you like exact, factual mistakes about this. I don't think that we had like real major groundbreaking, just reputation destroying mistakes, because we still, after all, we try to pay a lot of attention to this. We have high standards and we're demandful towards ourselves in this regard. But of course, there have been mistakes, of course, but all of them were not intentional. All of them were just honest mistakes because of the complexity of the situation. That's why we taught ourselves into being careful with the assertions. If we report something and we are not 150% sure that it's true, this is exactly what's happened, So we try to be careful and present this as someone says this, but we do not have verification behind this. So there are always things that you can do to make sure that your reader knows it, that it's not 100% verified information. So you should be careful. Or we also sometimes tend to be not rushing in before publishing something, even though we can have pretty reliable resource and source about this, but sometimes news sounds so crazy that sometimes it makes sense to wait a bit before we post it, before we publish this. Of course, mistakes happen, but we try to make as little of them as possible.
Takže žádná historka, na kterou celá redakce vzpomíná jako největší proval, tam není.
When it comes to running jokes in the newsroom, it's not about fuck ups, but mostly about I don't know, the fact that I got 1 million followers on Twitter. It's absolutely unforgettable running joke in the newsroom. So everyone has an obligation of pinning a joke against this every single day. At the Kyiv Independent, especially following some interview at a very major Ukrainian publication that said that I'm, when it comes to Twitter following, I'm the number 2 after Vladimir Zelensky, the president. Ever since then, every single day, someone remembers this headline, someone wants to pun me on this. So yeah, we have a lot of fun in the newsroom because, like I said, we are a team of pretty close friends. So we always have internal jokes. So if someone interested, he or she is very welcome to our newsroom and to see the atmosphere of absolutely abandoned joking spree in this newsroom.
Jaké to je, když jdete do baru pod redakcí, na chvilku si tam sednete, dáte si třeba pár piv a víte, že v mobilu je zbraň hromadného ničení, což je účet na Twitteru, který má 1 milion followerů. Neděsí vás to občas?
No, I don't. Why? It's not that we like drink a lot during air-raid science. Guys have some food, some meals. I sometimes get a couple of beers. Easygoing work. You have to do this. You have to adapt to complicated situations and stressful situations such as air-raid sirens, especially when we see bombings that come from nowhere, such as Iranian drones. They are very hard to detect, so sometimes they come from nowhere and attack not necessarily not military objects that could be expected as subject for attack, but civilian houses and playgrounds. So you have to convert, you have to adapt to all those things. Yeah, for instance, we have to conserve energy. So the streets of Kyiv and many other cities are dark in the evening, but still people get adapted to this. So there's unusual nightlife, singers, guitar players in the streets, people hanging out, bars working, but almost in the absolute dark of the streets. No street lights, nothing. You just have to do this to go on with your life. Otherwise, you'll just go cuckoo.
Díky, máme prostor ještě na 2 až 3 otázky podle toho, jak se rozjedeme z odpovědí. Tady je jedna, prosím.
Já bych se vás chtěl zeptat hodem toho Twitteru, jestli cítíte nějakou větší zodpovědnost, co sdílíte, a jestli nějak víc přemýšlíte nad tím, co sdílíte, nebo jestli naopak to třeba nějak využíváte, že máte tolik followerů.
Díky.
Of course, yes. It's an additional job to me, I would say. And with such an audience, first thing is that I did not feel that I kind of deserved this audience. I just ended up being the guy who's a journalist in the wartime in pretty unique situation. And I was still in something that many people needed. So it's not about me being talented or something. It's just me being in a situation where I have things to tell people, and people were interested about these things. But yes, given such an attention, it's always an additional job for me, and this is something that I need to think twice before I post something, before I tweet something, because many people can interpret things in the wrong way without you even thinking about, you know, those things that they might pop up. This is not about censorship as such. This is about thinking that there are many people, and many people have different backgrounds, and many people are from different countries, and many people are from countries that are not the same as Ukraine, and which standards of you know, social communication are not the same as we in Ukraine. So you have to understand this, and you have to avoid things that you'll be ashamed before yourself after this. So I try to do this. I try to try to be responsible in front of what I say, what I hear. But I also tried not to be, you know, dull, not to be too focused on this. I try to be easygoing and have to very trustful and almost personal connection with my readers. So I like it when many people see me as, you know, our guy in Ukraine who we trust. I think it's very good for very good journalistic role in this day and age when everyone has connection on social media with everyone.
Díky. Máme ještě otázku? Vidím vzadu.
Dobrý večer. Děkuji obou za to, co děláte. A chtěl jsem se zeptat, já jsem vždycky vnímal Ukrajinu před válkou jako relativně rozdělenou zemi. Ty lidé z průmyslového východu považovali Západ za relativně zaostalý a naopak ti ze západu ty východní Ukrajince za proruské. Mění se tohleto s tím společným ohrožením a tím průběhem války? Jsou ti muži ze západu ochotně bojovat za osvobození východní části Ukrajiny?
Díky za otázku.
This is happening. This has happened for 8 years. But you very correctly said that now the whole of the nation, truly the whole of the nation, has a one common thread. So the guy from, let's say, Zaporizhia is on the same boat, is in the same boat like the guy in Lviv or Ivano-Frankivsk. These guys from two different opposite sides of the country now have something as what we call a national myth, a common idea, truly unifying idea. So no matter what language they speak, no matter what confession they belong to, right now they end up in the same trench. They end up in the same idea of resisting Russian aggression, of saving this country, and continuing to have this country and developing this country in the post-war period. Now, the guy from Uzhhorod, the very extreme of this, extreme west of this country, has the same dream as the guy who was in Donbass, like myself. We all dream the same dream right now, which is getting rid of this war and stopping this war and stopping this nightmare and saving this nation, because you know, the survival of this country, of this nation as it is, as a democratic republic, as an independent nation, many things depend on this survival, such as even our lives, our properties, our way of life, all these things that we love in here, the people in Lviv and the people in Donbass as well. So yeah, now the country is as unified as never before in its history. And I think that compared to most countries of the world, Ukraine is one of the most focused and most unified, nationally unified nations in the world because of the face of the foreign threat, of course.
Díky moc. Poslední otázku si dáme takovou velice rychlou redakční radu. Co by měla být pro nás taková zpráva na headlineu v současné době o Ukrajině? Co by mělo být to, o čem by se nejvíc teď psalo, co bychom měli nejvíc vlastně vědět na konci října po 8 měsících války?
I think the most important thing is that Ukraine is now trying to survive the winter time. the upcoming winter time, and in order against Russian criminal strikes on infrastructure, and Russians want to basically force the Ukrainian population into surrendering by denying our access to electricity, to heating during winter time. Of course, it's a massive war crime and well this, but this is the most problematic challenge in this regard. So probably the headline would be the war between Ukrainian electricity workers and Iranian drones. We'll see what wins in this war, but I do not expect Ukrainians to just give up after Bucha, after so many things, just to give up, because sometimes they could be cut off electricity for several hours. That's not going to happen.
Díky za odpověď. Já teda Ukrajině přeju, ať se nemusí vzdát, ale ta válka ať co nejrychleji skončí a třeba se potkáme na příštím ročníku Jihlavy a budeme reflektovat poválečnou obnovu, když zbraně utichly, všechno je v klidu a Ukrajina je zpět ve svých plných hranicích. A já moc děkuji za debatu Iljovi Ponomarenkovi, moc děkuji za vaše otázky a loučím se s váma.